Bienvenidos Fright fans and welcome to the horror show. I am Jaime and Fuego here with a very special advanced review of a home invasion slasher film that endeared itself to a lot more people than I probably realized because of the fact that I'm just honestly not the biggest fan of those particular subgenres, but the theater was packed, people were very vocal, and it was just one of those screenings where you can tell that there is excitement and anticipation and genuine interest. We are talking about the sequel to The Strangers. Brian Bertino, who for me can do no wrong after writing and directing The Monster. Yeah, he only co-wrote this one, not back as director unfortunately, but it's entitled The Strangers Pray at Night. Now, the thing that I found so interesting about the original Strangers film was the fact that it had this there was no supernatural aspects, obviously, you know, compared to iconic slashers like Michael Myers, like he got later in the series. Same with Jason, Freddy pretty much the whole time, obviously. So, I mean, there was an interesting impersonability, I think, to The Strangers, the original film, and especially the dark ending to it and stuff, and, you know, just the only justification given was, well, because you were home. We don't need to explain why we're just killing fools and being insane people. So, you know, I know it endeared itself to way more people than I realized based on the response of the audience and stuff, and you can always tell at a advanced screening with critics and fans and stuff where, you know, just the fervency of the audience is a huge indicator, especially if it's a sequel, you know, just about how much people love the original film. So here on the horror show, we always like to talk about, you know, just basic story, acting, you know, music, you know, sound production and effects and stuff like that. We go just, you know, bit by bit by bit. And so I'm going to talk about overall impressions here right off the bat. It was kind of a mixed bag for me, you know. There were real just shimmering moments of awesomeness. There's a few scenes in particular where I was just like, damn, this is really going somewhere. And then there were others where I kind of just felt the lack of Bertino's just directing sense there, but that's not to take anything away from Johannes Robert, who did this. He is also the director of 47 Meters Down, which did very well, and its upcoming sequel, but a, a staple here on the horror show, despite not being a film that we loved, The Other Side of the Door. Yeah, I don't want to answer, but this actually might be one that you guys want to answer. Perhaps I'm just a little picky because of just, you know, not liking the subgenre as much, but it does have some flashes of brilliance. So overall impressions, I'll get into the reasons why I liked it and why I didn't like it, but it's kind of a mixed bag of sorts, and I'd probably give it like a, you know, C+, B-. It's not a bad film, and it does some very interesting things and some different things, obviously. It's not a complete rehash of ideas, which is what this sequel easily could have been. And yeah, so it essentially starts with a young girl who, if I recall correctly, was in the Don't Be Afraid of the Dark remake that had like Katie Holmes, written by Guillermo del Toro. She does a great job in this, actually. And she is being sent away to boarding school. She has her brother, who is like, you know, kind of a sports aficionado, but she's like the rock and roll rebel, which I can kind of relate a little bit to, obviously. And so that's why she's being sent away, and parents are there and trying to be supportive and cool, but obviously they're upset with her, and they allude to what she's done, but you'll have to watch the movie to see if they actually reveal proper and give some interesting insight about it or not. But so they are taking her to this boarding school, and they drive to, it's almost like a trailer rental kind of park, or maybe just a bunch of different singular units, you know, rental-wise, that a member of the family, an uncle and an aunt, own presumably and run and everything. And so when they're making their way to this boarding school to drop her off, whole family has to go. That's where the shizzle goes down, y'all. So pretty simple premise, I mean, and the one thing that the story does do is it expands the world compared to the original Strangers movie. So it's not just condensed to the one, you know, home and stuff like the previous one was, you know, that had Liv Tyler. And so, I mean, for that reason, it's cool that they did something different, but for that reason also, unfortunately, it lacks that claustrophobic aspect at times, especially with like the larger world and, you know, the entire grounds of this like outdoor, almost like camping style complex of places to go through. But there's a few interesting beats in the writing, especially, but then unfortunately there's also some cliched beats and stuff like that. So without being able to spoil anything here, I have to say that there are a few scenes specifically written and I mean, just filmed to just absolute brilliance, and we'll talk about that in the effects and the production design and stuff like that. But as a whole, I can't say the script really did a lot that shocked or surprised me. And yeah, not that it was a retread of the original Strangers, which everybody thought was so different. This felt more cliched, tropey, like, you know, the type of, you know, slashers and things that I've seen all too many times before. But yeah, there's a few scenes where you think something is going to happen and it doesn't end up happening, which are ultimately interesting and rewarding. But yeah, pretty, you know, base premise and story, unfortunately, you know. Rebellious girl, you know, being taken away. They stop for a night to stay at one particular place that the family owns, and that's where the terror commences, and that's pretty much it. Not a lot else that I can mention without spoiling stuff. So next, I really want to get into the acting, because this is where I credit everybody who was involved in this. Christina Hendricks, I believe her name is. She was on, oh boy, Mad Men, I want to say, and she's been in quite a few other things. She was in that movie where Charlie and Ice Cube were fighting. I cannot remember what the heck it was called. It was like T-shirt fight or some crap like that. But nonetheless, she's good in this while she's there, but I mean, you know, she's a supporting character. You know, she's the parent of this young girl who has found herself in some trouble and stuff. And, you know, there is no fault of the performances here, at least for me. And even with, you know, just the interactions, once again, with the three killers that we saw in the previous one, there are a couple instances where there's dialogue and, you know, just foreboding mannerisms and just presence and stuff like that. So the issues that I had with the actors was nothing about their performance, their chemistry, or anything like that. It was a lot of the lines that the script gave them. There was just cliched bit after cliched bit of, "You're gonna be okay, no, it's not okay, they're not okay, leave us alone," you know, crap like that, done way too much. I mean, just stupid character logic a lot of the time. There's a few instances, and once again, no detriment to the performance and how it was acted out, but just the way that it was written for these characters. Seriously, there's a few instances where you're like, why is this character not doing that? And I mean, maybe you would think, okay, they were just so freaked out in the situation or whatever, but there's too many logical stuff, and I guess this is where I'm glad I'm talking about the story right beside the acting, you know, for that sheer fact. But yeah, the acting was not the problem in this movie. It was the by-the-numbers aspect of the story at times, and also the dialogue given to these actors that did so much with, in certain situations, so little. But there are a few fist-pumping moments in this, you know, seriously, with both the brother and the sister. There are two scenes in particular, one involving a shotgun in a truck, and then another one that is poolside. Two of the best scenes in the entire movie. So I credit the performances of all of the people in it. The four-core family was great. They just, unfortunately, based on the script, had little to work with at times. So if we're gonna get into the effects and, you know, just the production design and stuff like that, it's not supremely gory, you know, but there are a few instances where, you know, the kills are just methodically put together and stuff, but they're not necessarily anything that we haven't seen before, but they're not of the super flashy, insanely grotesque variety, you know? This isn't a movie that's gonna be like a bar fest or anything on the gore level, but it's still effective when it's there. Honestly, the scene that still sticks out for me is maybe the best in the entire film, and this goes to, you know, the director, I would imagine, and the cinematographer as well, is a scene takes place when a character is being chased through just various areas of this place, and he gets to a pool. And the way that this entire scene is lit, with just the lights around this pool, especially when the conflict goes into the pool with him and the assailant that's after him, it's the highlight of the movie for me, especially the music that they use in it, and that's what I'm going to segue into next with the sound editing and the music and stuff like that. But that scene made the movie for me. That was where I was just like, okay, this is not bad. You know, even if I have some problems with certain things characters have done and certain scripting ideas and certain, you know, cliches and by the books moments, like that scene was filmed so splendidly, you know, from lighting to the use of blood in the water and stuff. I mean, goodness gracious, it's the one that definitely has stuck with me afterwards. And, you know, this is a good segue into the music because of the fact that the musical aspect and some of the choices that they came up with were some of the best aspects of this. You know, they really, from, you know, the sound editing of where, you know, particular characters are, you know, being stabbed, and just the breathing, and, you know, just the lingering camera work and the sound of, you know, just like the gurgling of blood and things like that. It really did not shy away from just putting you right there with the victims in this, and feeling like you're like, okay, and we're still there, and we're still hearing it, and we're still just, it was disturbing. And that was where the film was really effective, in those particular bits. And I mean, the music, obviously, some of the choices, they did a very cool thing of balancing kind of just 80s type, like synthy and, you know, power ballady love type stuff with the carnage as it was transpiring. And one of my favorite bits is near the end of the film, where they use this Air Supply song as the girl is being pursued. And I mean, making love out of nothing at all, it juxtaposed things so awesomely. So I mean, yeah, if we're really just gonna you know, sum things up properly, this was not a film that I despised or anything like that. I didn't love it though. I had some issues with it, but I feel like there was so much more in just redeeming values from, you know, the music that I said, the performances. There were scripting issues here, okay? That is one of the big things. But I mean, the director did a lot with what he could, just like I felt like the actors did a lot with what they could there. I know Bertino co-wrote the script, so I'm really curious about how much the other person who was co-credited with him had to do with it, especially with, you know, especially with the dialogue. The dialogue and some of the beats and choices were my biggest problems with this film. But I think that since I'm not the biggest fan of this particular, you know, just melding of subgenres of slasher and just home invasion-y type stuff, even though this kind of takes the invasion away from the home, you know, makes it bigger, like I said, I think people who really enjoy this particular, you know, type of horror might like it a lot more than me. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's definitely worth checking out, and just the beautiful way it was filmed, the solid performances of the acting, and the way the music melded with stuff makes it worth at least going and, you know, paying a trip to the cinema, I would say. If you're more on the fence, probably wait till VOD or, you know, Netflix or wherever the hell it ends up, but there you have it, peeps. I have been Jaime and Fuego. I extend a grande gracias to all the peeps here on the horror show. Now, I'm actually just filming this here at Casa in Fuego, which is why you're seeing a very, very different set. I tried to just, you know, makeshift something together here. So thanks for tuning in and just getting some advanced word about this. Once again, a non-spoiler review. I want to do a spoiler review, especially since I believe that Marcia and Cecil are much bigger fans of this original film, The Strangers, than I particularly was, and I would really like to hear their thoughts. Do you guys want to see a spoilers review, or did you get enough insight from the little bit that I gave you here? So yes, that has been it, y'all, and I look forward to yeah, talking more horror with you very, very soon here on the Horror Show. So hasta luego, sin amigos, as I always say, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe here on the Horror Show if you have not, and check out our TeePublic in the links below. So yeah, until then, peeps, make sure to stay scared. Later.